with him.
Behind Kirkfrost and Mendeecees Harris, two names previously uttered with pride and respect throughout the love and hip-hop universe, now reduced to inmate numbers and chained ankles, the metal clank of the jail door reverberated louder than thunder. In the minds of everyone watching, a swarm of flashing cameras, crying admirers, and weary producers pacing back and forth like funeral directors at a famous wake had taken over the world outside the precinct. This was more than simply a scandal, it was a major turning point in the history of the show. Mendeecees stood at the fingerprint scanner, his eyes empty, his jaw clenched, his lips squeezed in a secret prayer that no one could hear but God, while Kirk sat slumped over in the dim, frigid booking area, his damaged knuckles resting on trembling knees. There was stillness for a minute, not just in the jail but also in the hearts of Rashida and Yandy, two women who were both stranded outside in blacked-out SUVs, each broken in her own unique manner, and who stared at closed doors as though they were desperate enough to open them. For more than an hour, Rashida had been silently reading through her children's letters, one of which asked if their father would be permanently imprisoned. Yandy was not getting any better, repeatedly repeating the same 4 words, he was doing better. This is a trap, Kirk said, slamming his fist into the chilly steel bench inside. This is what they desired. A fit of anger that reverberated into the corridor, only interrupted by a weary prison officer who didn't even blink. Back at the studio, VH1 producers were frantically juggling legal counsel, timelines of leaked film, and public relations comments that attempted to minimize a situation that had already ignited the internet. We have to spin this as a conflict gone wrong, not a breakdown of the entire cast integrity, one executive yelled over a phone, and another whispered, we might have to shelve the entire season. The film was more realistic, intense, and visceral than anything the franchise had ever captured, and everyone knew deep down that this was about more than 2 men fighting, so shelving was no longer an option. This had to do with legacy, ego, territory, and power. Mendeecees sat down opposite Kirk in the cell, still silent and just looking at the floor, until Kirk eventually broke the stillness with the one remark that made all the difference, you wanted me out. Mendeecees' bloodshot eyes narrowed as he peered up. Avoid starting that, he remarked icily. You believe I had this planned? It wasn't your fault, Kirk said. You walked away after lighting the match. Mendeecees slowly rose to his feet, clenching his fists. Are you pointing the finger at me? You've been putting things off and acting as the gatekeeper for too long. Perhaps this show needs some fresh talent. That was it, a battle line was drawn across the floor of a county jail, giving a face and a voice to the silent conflict that had been simmering for 2 years. Rashida was swarmed by paparazzi as she paced outside the parking lot. If she blamed VH1, someone asked. With unadulterated hatred, she turned to them, hesitated, and stated, they sat back and filmed this like it was a plot twist. They let it to boil until it blew up. It's not a monster, my spouse. Yandy, on the other hand, responded differently. We give our lives to these cameras, but they don't give a damn about our lives, she said in a whisper while taking out her phone and sharing a little video to her Instagram story. It was reshared more than 150,000 times in a matter of minutes. Looks like you got bail hearings in the morning, a low-ranking officer commented as he passed by inside the jail holding a clipboard. However, neither man responded. They were aware that the battlefield included more than just the court. The actual conflict was already being fought in headlines, popular opinion, and viral videos that only partially revealed the truth. Fans from all around the city gathered outside the VH1 headquarters with posters that said, reality TV isn't worth their sanity, free Kirk, and Mendeecees was set up. Even Mona Scott's name was trending, but not in a positive way. When their solicitors arrived at the jail, Kirk and Mendeecees were put in different interrogation rooms. The accusations were outlined by Kirk's attorney and included resisting arrest, aggravated assault, and public disturbance. You might not benefit from the video, he cautioned. Only the part where you lunged was broadcast. With fire in his eyes, Kirk leaned forward. In front of my wife and the entire set, tell them to air the part where he called me a washed-up fraud. Instruct them to broadcast the scene in which security just stood there doing nothing. Mendeecees sat opposite his own lawyer, who informed him that VH1 was thinking of putting a freeze on his contract and preventing him from making any more appearances. They're attempting to drive you away. Mendeecees gave a sour laugh. They believe I'll leave? This season, I built. There was an urgent producers meeting going on back at the studio. One executive leaned in and declared out loud, we must make a decision. Mendeecees or Kirk will have to go. We are unable to keep both. Not a word. That was a decision no one wanted to make. Anyhow, ratings would rise. However, reputations? Families? Jobs? That was the cost. The following day, Rashida showed up outside the courtroom wearing sunglasses and holding Kirk's daughter's hand. They were there for dignity as well as bail. Moments afterward, Kirk showed up, head down, in handcuffs, not out of embarrassment but out of strategy. He was aware that he was being filmed. The blogs were waiting, I knew. With 2 officers and a VH1 lawyer at his sides, Mendeecees trailed. Behind, his stride slower but his gaze fixed on the front. The judge asked both sides to make remarks and went over the allegations in the courtroom. Any further altercations while under production contracts will result in immediate detainment, the court said, granting bail after the attorneys spoke. And the families remained mute. Although neither man approved of the order, they both signed it. Support was yelled by fans as they left the court. "We've got your back, Kirk," exclaimed one woman. "Mendeecees, don't let them break you," shouted another. However, neither man answered. When they returned home that evening, the silence was more deafening than before. Rashida sat across from Kirk, sobbing as the humiliation in front of the world weighed down on her normally composed demeanor. She said, "Kirk, this isn't us. We don't fix things like this." Kirk remained silent. He gazed at the TV, which was muted, with his mugshot displayed on entertainment news stations. Yandy stared, her words hardly more than a whisper, as Mendeecees cradled his smallest kid in his arms. "You had the option to leave. Why did you not leave?" "Because I'm tired of being quiet," Mendeecees remarked, planting a kiss on his son's forehead. The situation only became worse over the course of the following few days. Text messages that were leaked. Voice memos. Comments from the producer. The true shock came next. An internal email that was leaked revealed that VH1 had anticipated the explosion weeks beforehand and had let tensions develop to create anticipation. One phrase said, "This will be our Scandoval." It only required that. Members of the cast rebelled. In their statements, Tamar Braxton, Erica Mena, and even traditional veterans like Stevie J accused VH1 of trauma profiteering and manipulating emotions. The franchise was suddenly at war with itself in addition to being in danger. Mona Scott said nothing. Don't tweet. Nothing to say. Only one emoji post. The internet took off. The petitions followed. In a single day, over 30,000 petitions were collected calling for the cancellation of the season. Others, though? Others insisted on air, raw, unfiltered, and unedited. Kirk and Mendeecees were now icons in a far larger battle as the court of public opinion had split. For control, one. One out of deference. Above all, one for the truth.